Hi and welcome back to Reddit Whispers. I've been married for 5 years, but we've been a unit, a partnership for over a decade. We have two beautiful daughters, a home we've built together, a life that from the outside looking in appears to be the epitome of the suburban dream. We were, for all intents and purposes, a happy family. That was until a few weeks ago when the meticulously constructed facade of our perfect life began to crumble, starting with a confession that has since sent me into a spiral of confusion, heartbreak, and a profound sense of betrayal. My wife, the woman I have loved for more than 10 years, the mother of my children, sat me down one evening and admitted that she has feelings for our next-door neighbor. The words hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating, instantly altering the landscape of our shared reality. She went on to confess that this wasn't a fleeting crush, a momentary lapse in her devotion to our marriage. No, this was something she had acted upon, not physically, she assured me, but emotionally. She had confessed her feelings to him not once, but twice. The first time was a clandestine message sent through the cold, impersonal conduit of Facebook. The second, a far more daring and intimate admission, was in person. The neighbor, a retired man who spends his days at home, a man my wife described as having a better personality, more communicative than I, had not reciprocated her feelings. He had, in her words, gently rebuffed her advances. She told me she had eventually blocked him on Facebook, a move she claimed was an act of self-preservation, a way to cut off the constant temptation of checking his online status, of feeding an infatuation that had taken root in the fertile ground of her loneliness and our growing emotional disconnect. But I'm not entirely convinced that was the whole truth. The doubt, a venomous serpent, has coiled itself around my heart, squeezing the life out of the trust I once had for her. For 4 months, she harbored this secret, this emotional betrayal, hiding it from me while we went about our daily lives, sharing meals, raising our daughters, sleeping in the same bed. 4 months of lies and deception. My initial reaction was a primal urge to flee, to sever the ties that bound us together, to initiate divorce proceedings and reclaim some semblance of control over a life that had been so thoroughly upended. The word divorce felt like a shield, a way to protect myself from further pain, from the humiliation of knowing that the woman I loved desired another man. But then came the pleading, the tearful promises of love and devotion, the desperate pleas for a second chance. She swore she loved me, that she wanted to be with me, that our family was everything to her. And so I hesitated. I chose to sit still, to weather the storm, to try and hold our fractured family together. I do love her, of course I do, but I am so profoundly conflicted, torn between the love I have for the woman I married and the searing pain of her betrayal. What haunts me the most is not just the existence of her feelings for another man, but the fact that she acted on them. She took a conscious step across a line that should have been inviolable. She sought him out, laid her heart at his feet, and in doing so, shattered mine into a million irreparable pieces. I can't stop replaying the scene in my mind, a torturous loop of what-ifs. What was she expecting from him? What did she hope to achieve by confessing her feelings? Did she want him to reciprocate, to sweep her off her feet and away from the life we had built together? These questions plague my waking hours and invade my dreams, leaving me exhausted and hollowed out. She claims to have voluntarily cut off all contact with him, but she also admits that her feelings for him persist. They linger like a ghost in our home, a constant reminder of her emotional infidelity. She tells me she's praying for these feelings to dissipate, but that it's not a button that she can just press. I understand that, on an intellectual level. Emotions are complex and messy things, not easily controlled or dismissed. But knowing that I am no longer her one and only, that her heart is divided, has turned my own heart to ice. I've spent countless hours scrolling through online forums, seeking solace in the shared experiences of strangers, trying to make sense of this new, unwelcome reality. I've learned that crushes are common in long-term relationships, a normal part of the human experience. But what she did, the conscious decision to act on her crush, to confess her feelings to another man, feels like a betrayal of the highest order. Nothing physical happened, she insists, as if that somehow mitigates the damage. But the emotional chasm that has opened up between us is vast and seemingly insurmountable. I'm a stoic person by nature, not one for grand displays of emotion. I work a lot, long hours at a demanding job, trying to provide for my family, to give them the life I never had. I now see that in my relentless pursuit of financial security, I may have neglected the emotional needs of my wife, of our marriage. She's a stay-at-home mom, her days filled with the often thankless and isolating tasks of raising our two young daughters. Her world has shrunk, while mine has expanded. I can see now how the attention of another man, a man who is home all day, who is more communicative and emotionally available, could be a seductive balm to her loneliness. She has brought up her feelings of disconnection from me before, but I, in my stoicism and my focus on work, failed to truly hear her, to understand the depth of her unhappiness. I don't think I can trust her anymore. The foundation of our marriage, built on a decade of shared experiences and mutual trust, has been irrevocably fractured. The thought of her with him, even just in her mind, is a constant, gnawing pain. The risk of her acting on these feelings again, of the emotional affair turning into a physical one, is a specter that haunts my every thought. The heartbreak is a physical ache in my chest, a weight that I carry with me throughout the day. I look at our daughters, their innocent faces oblivious to the turmoil that has engulfed their parents, and I feel an overwhelming sense of regret. Regret for my emotional absence, regret for not seeing the cracks in our marriage before they became a gaping chasm. The idea of redemption feels like a distant, unattainable dream. How do we come back from this? How do I learn to trust her again? How do we rebuild a life together on the ashes of our shattered past? The path forward is shrouded in uncertainty, a treacherous landscape of doubt and fear. The survival of our family hangs in the balance, and I am left to grapple with the devastating consequences of my wife's choices and my own apathetic contributions to the slow, insidious erosion of our love. The weight of this new reality is crushing, the future a terrifying and unknown territory. The heartbreak is the first and most visceral blow, a raw, gaping wound that refuses to heal. It's a constant, dull ache in my chest, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil that has become my new reality. The life I knew, the future I had envisioned, has been obliterated in the blink of an eye. The sense of betrayal is a venom that has seeped into every corner of my being, poisoning my memories, tainting our shared history. Every "I love you," every shared laugh, every intimate moment is now cast in a shadow of doubt. Was any of it real, or was I living in a fool's paradise, oblivious to the cracks that were forming in the foundation of our marriage? The regret is a heavy cloak that I cannot seem to shrug off. I replay our last few years together in my mind, searching for clues I might have missed, for signs of her unhappiness. Her occasional complaints about feeling disconnected, her pleas for more quality time together, all of which I dismissed as the normal ebbs and flows of a long-term relationship, now feel like desperate cries for help that I was too deaf to hear. I was so focused on the future, on building a life for us, that I failed to nurture the present. I took her for granted, assuming that our love was a given, an unshakable constant in a world of variables. The irony is not lost on me. I worked tirelessly to provide for my family, to ensure their financial security, only to discover that the emotional currency of our marriage was bankrupt. The money, the house, the comfortable lifestyle, all of it feels meaningless in the face of this profound emotional void. The neighbor, with his better personality and his constant presence, offered her something I couldn't, or rather, something I failed to prioritize: emotional intimacy. The risk of losing everything I hold dear, my wife, my children, the life we have built together, is a terrifying prospect. The thought of our daughters growing up in a broken home, shuttling between two separate lives, is a nightmare I cannot bear to contemplate. But the alternative, staying in a marriage devoid of trust, a marriage haunted by the ghost of her emotional infidelity, feels equally unbearable. The sacrifice required to even attempt a reconciliation feels monumental. It would mean swallowing my pride, suppressing my anger, and opening myself up to the possibility of being hurt again. It would mean confronting my own shortcomings as a husband and a partner, a painful and humbling process of self-examination. The path to redemption, if such a path even exists, is fraught with obstacles. It would require a level of honesty and vulnerability from both of us that we have never before achieved. It would mean dismantling the walls we have built around our hearts and learning to communicate in a way that is both authentic and compassionate. The survival of our marriage is no longer a given. It is a question mark, a fragile thing that could shatter with the slightest misstep. The weight of this uncertainty is a heavy burden to bear, a constant reminder of how quickly a life can unravel, how easily a decade of love and commitment can be undone by a moment of weakness, a series of poor choices. The emotional fallout of my wife's confession has been a cataclysmic event, a seismic shock that has leveled the foundations of our life together. The initial heartbreak, a raw and visceral pain, has slowly given way to a more insidious and pervasive sense of unease. The betrayal, a sharp and piercing dagger to the heart, has left a wound that refuses to close, a constant reminder of the trust that has been shattered. The regret, a heavy and suffocating blanket, threatens to smother me in its suffocating embrace. I find myself questioning everything, not just our marriage, but my own identity as a husband, as a man. Was I not enough for her? Was my love, my commitment, my tireless efforts to provide for our family all for naught? These questions, like a relentless Greek chorus, echo in the hollow chambers of my heart, offering no answers, only more pain. The money, once a source of pride and a symbol of my success, now feels like a hollow consolation prize. I have a beautiful home, a successful career, a healthy bank account, but what is it all worth without the love and respect of my wife? The investment I made in our future, the long hours at the office, the missed dinners and bedtime stories, all of it feels like a colossal miscalculation. I was so focused on building a kingdom that I failed to notice that the queen was slowly slipping away. The risk of losing it all, not just the material possessions, but the intangible treasures of a shared life, the inside jokes, the comfortable silences, the unwavering support, is a terrifying prospect. The thought of dividing our assets, of selling the house we have made a home, of navigating the treacherous waters of custody battles, is enough to send a shiver down my spine. The real estate we have accumulated, the investments we have made, all of it feels tainted by her betrayal. The dream of a shared future, of growing old together in the house we have so lovingly built, has been replaced by the cold, hard reality of a potential divorce. The realtor, once a symbol of our shared aspirations, now feels like a harbinger of doom. The thought of a for sale sign on our lawn, a public declaration of our private failure, is a humiliation I am not sure I can bear. The debt we have accumulated, the mortgage, the car payments, the credit card bills, all of it now feels like a chain that binds us together, not in love, but in a shared financial obligation. The thought of starting over, of rebuilding my life from the ground up, is a daunting prospect. My credit score, once a source of pride, now feels like a fragile thing, a symbol of a life that could so easily unravel. The health insurance, a safety net I have so diligently maintained, now feels like a cruel joke. I am insured against illness, against accidents, against unforeseen medical emergencies, but there is no policy that can protect me from the excruciating pain of a broken heart. The survival of our family unit, the preservation of our children's innocence, has become my sole focus. The sacrifice required to achieve this goal feels immense, a Herculean task that will require every ounce of my strength and resolve. The path to redemption, if such a path even exists, is a long and arduous one. It is a path that will require forgiveness, not just for her, but for myself. It is a path that will require a level of emotional honesty that I have never before been capable of. But for the sake of my daughters, for the sake of the love that once burned so brightly between us, I am willing to try. I am willing to risk it all, to face the heartbreak, the betrayal, the regret, in the hope that we can find our way back to each other, that we can rebuild our shattered lives and emerge from the ashes of this devastating crisis stronger and more united than ever before. But the fear, the cold, hard fear that it might all be in vain, is a constant and unwelcome companion on this uncertain journey. The aftershocks of my wife's confession continue to reverberate through every aspect of my life, a constant and unwelcome reminder of the betrayal that has irrevocably altered our family's landscape. The initial shock has subsided, replaced by a gnawing anxiety that follows me like a shadow, a constant companion in my waking hours and a tormentor in my fitful sleep. The heartbreak, once a sharp and piercing pain, has settled into a dull, persistent ache, a constant weight on my soul. The regret, a venomous serpent, continues to coil itself around my heart, whispering poisonous what-ifs into the hollow chambers of my mind. I find myself dissecting every interaction, every conversation, every shared glance, searching for the signs I so tragically missed. Her words, "I've felt disconnected from you," now echo in my memory with a chilling clarity. I was a stoic provider, a man who equated love with financial stability, with a good credit score and a solid real estate investment. I failed to understand that a marriage, a true partnership, requires more than just money. It requires a constant investment of time, of emotional energy, of shared vulnerability. I was a realtor of our life, so focused on the structure, the foundation, the outward appearance of our home, that I failed to notice the emotional dry rot that was slowly eating away at its core. The neighbor, with his easy charm and his endless supply of free time, was simply a symptom of a much deeper problem, a problem that had been festering in the dark, neglected corners of our marriage for years. The betrayal, the act of her confessing her feelings to another man, is a wound that continues to fester, a constant source of pain and humiliation. The thought of her turning to another man for the emotional intimacy she was not receiving from me is a bitter pill to swallow. It is a reflection not only of her weakness, but of my own failure as a husband. The risk of her doing it again, of this emotional affair escalating into a physical one, is a constant and terrifying thought. The trust that once formed the bedrock of our relationship has been eroded, replaced by a shifting landscape of suspicion and doubt. I find myself questioning her every move, her every word, her every late-night text message. This is no way to live, this constant state of high alert, this self-imposed prison of mistrust. The survival of our marriage, our family, has become a daily struggle, a battle fought on multiple fronts. There is the internal battle, the struggle to control my anger, to quiet the voices of doubt and insecurity that whisper in my ear. And then there is the external battle, the effort to present a united front to the world, to shield our daughters from the emotional shrapnel of our marital crisis. The sacrifice required to navigate this treacherous terrain is immense. It means setting aside my own pain, my own sense of betrayal, and focusing on the needs of my family. It means engaging in the difficult and often painful work of couples counseling, of dredging up old resentments and unspoken grievances in the hope of finding a path to healing. It means learning to communicate in a new language, a language of emotional honesty and vulnerability, a language I have never been fluent in. The concept of redemption feels like a distant and unattainable shore. How can we possibly come back from this? How can we rebuild a love that has been so thoroughly desecrated? The path forward is uncertain, a winding road shrouded in a thick fog of doubt and fear. There are moments of hope, fleeting glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the woman who is still, somewhere beneath the layers of regret and unhappiness, my wife. But these moments are often followed by a fresh wave of despair, a renewed sense of the enormity of the task that lies before us. The debt we owe to our children, the debt of a happy and stable home, is the one thing that keeps me from walking away, from surrendering to the overwhelming desire to escape this emotional maelstrom. But the cost of this survival, the toll it is taking on my own mental and emotional well-being, is a heavy one. I am a man adrift, lost in a sea of my own making, clinging to the wreckage of a life that was once so full of promise, so full of love. The heartbreak is a constant companion, a ghost that haunts the hallways of our home, a silent testament to the love that has been lost and perhaps can never be fully regained. The rental of my own happiness seems to be the price of my family's survival, a sacrifice I am willing to make, but one that leaves me feeling hollowed out, a mere shadow of the man I once was. The future is a blank page, and I am a writer who has lost his words, unsure of how to even begin to write a chapter that may or may not include the woman I once called my one and only. The redemption I seek is not just for her, but for myself, for the husband I failed to be, for the man I still hope to become. But the path to that redemption is a long and arduous one, and I am so very, very tired. The journey towards a new normal, a life rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal, has been a slow and arduous one. The initial whirlwind of heartbreak and anger has given way to a fragile and tentative peace, a delicate dance of forgiveness and forgetting. We are still together, my wife and I, two survivors clinging to the wreckage of our marriage, trying to navigate the treacherous currents of a future that is no longer certain. The decision to stay, to fight for our family, was not an easy one. It was a choice born not of a sudden and miraculous healing, but of a slow and dawning realization that our love, though deeply wounded, was not yet dead. It was a choice fueled by the innocent faces of our two daughters, a constant and powerful reminder of the life we had created together, a life that was worth fighting for. The path to redemption has been paved with countless hours of therapy, with raw and painful conversations that have stretched late into the night. We have been forced to confront the ugly truths about ourselves and our marriage, to acknowledge the ways in which we have both contributed to the erosion of our love. I have had to come to terms with my own emotional stoicism, my tendency to retreat into the safe and predictable world of work, leaving my wife to navigate the often lonely landscape of motherhood on her own. She, in turn, has had to confront the recklessness of her actions, the profound and lasting damage caused by her emotional betrayal. The survival of our marriage has required a complete and total reimagining of our relationship. We have had to learn to communicate in a way that is both honest and compassionate, to listen without judgment, to speak without accusation. We have had to create new rituals of connection, to carve out time for each other amidst the chaos of family life, to remember that we are not just parents, but partners, lovers, and friends. The money, the real estate, the investments, all the material trappings of our life together have faded into the background, their importance diminished in the face of this existential crisis. We have come to understand that a strong marriage is not built on a solid financial foundation, but on a foundation of trust, of mutual respect, of a shared commitment to weathering the inevitable storms of life together. The risk of another betrayal, another heartbreak, is a ghost that still lingers in the corners of our home. There are days when the old wounds feel fresh, when a careless word or a thoughtless action can trigger a fresh wave of pain and insecurity. The trust, once so effortlessly given, is now a fragile and precious thing, something that must be earned and re-earned every single day. The process of rebuilding it is a slow and painstaking one, a journey of 1,000 small steps. It is in the way she now looks at me, with a newfound sense of appreciation and a deep and abiding remorse. It is in the way I now make a conscious effort to be more present, to put down my phone, to close my laptop, and to truly listen when she speaks. It is in the shared laughter that has slowly begun to fill the silence in our home, a sign that the ice around our hearts is beginning to thaw. The health insurance policy that once felt like a cruel joke now feels like a symbol of our shared commitment to each other's well-being, both physical and emotional. We are both in the process of healing, of mending the broken pieces of ourselves and our marriage. The realtor who once represented our shared dreams of a future together now represents a crossroads, a choice between selling our home and starting over, or staying and rebuilding on the foundation of our shared history. We have chosen to stay, to reclaim our home from the ghosts of the past, to fill it with new memories, with new hope. The debt we have accumulated is no longer a chain that binds us together in a loveless union, but a shared responsibility, a reminder of the life we have built together, a life that is worth the sacrifice. The rental of my own happiness, the price I once thought I would have to pay for my family's survival, has turned out to be a false economy. In the process of fighting for my marriage, of learning to be a better husband and a better man, I have found a new and deeper sense of my own worth, my own happiness. The journey is far from over. The scars of this betrayal will always be a part of our story, a reminder of how close we came to losing everything. But they will also be a testament to our resilience, to our capacity for forgiveness, to the enduring power of a love that has been tested by fire and has emerged, not unscathed, but stronger, deeper, and more authentic than ever before. The future is still a blank page, but now, when I look at it, I am no longer filled with a sense of dread, but with a quiet and hopeful sense of possibility. We are writing a new story, a story of redemption, of survival, of a love that has been broken and remade, a love that is, in its own imperfect way, more beautiful than ever before. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the regret, they are all still there, but they are no longer the whole story. They are simply the dark and stormy prelude to a new and brighter chapter, a chapter we are writing together, one day at a time. Thank you for listening to this story. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Click like and subscribe to the Reddit Whispers for more.